Hello friends, you're listening to your favorite podcast, or more precisely, a forecast for the upcoming UFC tournament. And here are your two favorite hosts. It's UFC top 3 fighter Alexander Volkov and armchair expert Alexey Likharev.
Yes, hello everyone. Today, as per our good tradition, as always, we'll break down the upcoming and highly anticipated UFC tournament together with you, of course, in your native language, providing a comprehensive and detailed overview as usual.
Please don't judge us too harshly. But first, I'd like to start with a disclaimer, guys. It's just that we often get messages, I read the comments. By the way, if you ever think someone was rude to you, that was me, not Alexander, because I'm the one who replies to the comments.
But I read them and had a good laugh.
That's it. Yeah. So sorry for spoiling the intrigue. And a lot of people write to us like, why the hell do you swear so much? First of all, I want to say, we do edit out the swearing. We have a super editor who takes care of all that. And secondly, I want to give a disclaimer, which I've mentioned many times, but I'll repeat it once more, just in case, for the most sensitive among you. Guys, we're analyzing combat sports, mixed martial arts. This is MMA, where grown men in shorts are trying to smash each other's faces in. Can you imagine? And you watch this brutal sport. And if for some reason, when you hear the word dick, because of some childhood trauma, for example, you start to get a bitter taste in your mouth, that's not our fault. Most likely that's something you need to work on. Maybe you should just be interested in a different sport.
So, I have this half here. And on this side, we really don't use any foul language at all, so it's all good, guys. You can let your kids sit next to the screens.
Next to one of the sides.
Next to this half, and let them listen to me. I'll teach and raise them, since some of you can't manage to do it yourselves, and they end up having to hear swearing from Alexey.
Yes. So what? And by the way, I'd like to introduce a new segment. The segment is called News, where before making predictions for the upcoming tournament, we'll discuss some news from the world of martial arts. Things that have burst onto the scene like lightning, or anything else noteworthy. We can discuss any fights except for one fight that we've already talked about and agreed not to discuss. Just like that one piece of news we've agreed not to discuss. Well, I think everyone understands. So, regarding the news, here's what I'd like to talk about. First of all, the fight at Top Dog. Which one? On June 5th, I think, in Moscow. Alexandra Shikova versus Danny Rugby.
That's awesome.
Do you have anything to add? Anything to say? Any predictions?
Sanya Shikova is like chocolate, practically music to the ears of all heavy nu metal fans, or death metal fans, or thrash metal fans, for many. I'm not an expert, but I do listen to it, and sometimes I really enjoy that kind of music, depending on my mood. Anyway, he's a talented and accomplished musician from the band Prevail, who is well known for his impressive performances.
Slaughter to Prevail.
We have perfect Las Vegas pronunciation, truly.
Nevadsky English.
Nevadsky English. So, he's going to fight the organizer of the Top Dog promotion, and this fight will actually take place right at the Top Dog venue itself. In other words, he's stepping out of his usual element, since this isn't happening on his own turf. He's not in his familiar environment, not in his true role, and not performing on stage somewhere as he might normally do. Instead, he's entering a completely different setting, facing new challenges outside his comfort zone. No, they're not going to have a vocal battle, not a rap battle or anything like that, but a real bare knuckle fight.
Not even a slam.
Yeah, not
even a circle pit, you know? They'll meet in the octagon.
That's absolutely right. And they'll meet in the hay octagon and beat each other's
faces
until one of them wins or loses. Sanya is cool. He's getting ready for the fight. Honestly, it's going to be really interesting to watch this match. Let's just wish him good luck. And to be honest, I'm rooting for him. He's doing this sincerely. Not for show, not for the hype, but simply because he's passionate about the sport, because he enjoys it and wants to test himself. Don't judge him too harshly, he'll judge himself harshly enough. But believe me, as we can see from his social media, he's training really hard, giving it his all, as if he's already a professional fighter. By the way, he's already had his first fight. This is actually his second fight. In the first one, he knocked out his opponent pretty quickly, so let's wish him victory in his second fight. It'll be awesome to watch.
By the way, when are you considered a professional fighter? Is it after you've had a professional fight, or when fighting becomes your profession?
Do you know where being a pro fighter comes from? It's not some kind of label that gets put on you. It's here.
I don't get it.
And Sanya, he's already one of us.
100%. I just have one question. When I heard the announcement for this fight, I wondered why. Like seriously, why? What's the point? For example, why would Sanya go up against the rugby player? I have a good attitude toward Danya the rugby player. We don't know each other personally, unlike with Sanya. Of course, I'll be rooting for Sanya, but it's like, what's the reason for this fight? What's it for? To prove something to someone, but first and foremost to yourself. It seems to me that Sanya's opponent should be someone with more media presence. For example, if he fought Danya Milokin, who has already won several boxing matches, trains well, and has a huge amount of hype. That's what all of this is really about. They would attract attention to the tournament. That would actually be quite a competitive fight, by the way. And from a media standpoint, it would be a bombshell. But here, what's the point? Why is he even going there? The chance of losing is high. Of course, I'm worried about Sanya, but rugby player is a guy who, he was fighting at Strelka back when he was still selling shorts at Fighter. Can you imagine how long ago that was? That was already 10 years ago. Plus, he's been in this scene. Plus, over the past year, he was getting ready to fight Siluyan, working out like crazy. I don't know who else. Maybe Filkenstein. Basically, he was planning to fight anyone there. So he's been preparing, he has a lot of experience, and it's clear that
He wants
to get the maximum hype out of this fight.
Exactly. And at the same time, Sanya wasn't afraid, he accepted the challenge. Why? I think first and foremost, 100% for himself. He wants to test himself, to claim a scalp that matters to him, and for you, dear viewers. The two most important reasons a fighter steps into the ring, for himself and for the audience. And in this regard, Sanya is a true professional. Of course, well, there's probably a financial aspect to this fight as well. But first and foremost, I'm sure that what interests him here isn't the money, but the very essence of such a high-profile fight, where maybe not everyone will see him as the favorite, and maybe he won't even win, but just taking on the challenge itself is really cool. And that's something you can respect and a reason to tune into this fight. I don't want to advertise Top Dog, but I really think you should watch this particular match. It's not that I don't want to because I dislike them, by the way. It's just that they didn't pay us for this podcast. That's all. I'm just joking. Please, watch the fight. Sanya the rugby player, Sanya and the rugby player.
Yeah, we'll definitely watch it too and break it down closer to the event. The second piece of news today just hit like lightning, like thunder out of a clear sky. Oliveira versus Tsarukyan on June 28th at UFC 317. It's been officially announced.
I didn't have time to prepare for this news.
So I'll keep it brief. For Oliveira, next news. Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev, UFC 319.
Alright, I didn't have time to prepare for this news either, but I'll comment on it. Du Plessis? And now, let's move on to our card for the Burns vs Morales UFC event, which, as you may already know, will take place in sunny Las Vegas.
Right here on the next street over, as I've mentioned more than once. So if this video gets a few likes, of course we'll go there, check it out, and maybe share our impressions. That's why, guys, a lot of people watch the channel without subscribing. Let's fix this tragic mistake right now. Subscribe. A like will really help promote us, it'll give us such a boost. And of course, leave your comments. Write anything you want. We read everything, I read everything. That's it.
And if you're listening to this podcast in your native language, then share it with your buddies who also understand you in your native language. Let them subscribe too, leave a like, comment and watch, let them get to know the UFC. Maybe some of them aren't as familiar with it as you are, and they'll start to understand it too. So it's in all our interest to educate ourselves about MMA, share this video and enjoy the fights together.
Yes, and once again, please don't judge us too harshly. We're Russian guys after all, and this isn't our first language.
So, shall we start with the first fight that opens the main card? Yes, I should mention that we mostly cover the main card fights and some bouts that Alexey and I personally find interesting. But for this event, we'll start specifically with the main card.
Erosa versus Costa. Erosa is 35 years old and is currently on a 3-fight winning streak. He finished Derek Elkins in his last fight. You can't really call that a huge scalp, but still his last opponent was a pretty tough guy and has some name recognition. But most importantly, his last fight took place on April 12th. So it's been hardly any time at all, just about a month, and he's already stepping back into the cage to entertain us. Costa is 28 years old and is also on a 3-fight winning streak. And by the way, he also fought relatively recently, I think it was on March 29th. So these two quick turnaround guys are about to face each other. If you let them, they'd fight every week. Especially with each other, 100%.
There aren't any others like them.
It should be a good fight. Both fighters have a much higher percentage of finishes compared to decisions. Since we're engineers here, let's talk in percentages. Much higher than fights that go to the judges. So we're in for a serious slugfest. But as we usually know, when fighters like this are matched up and everyone expects a brawl, they end up being super cautious instead, and it turns into some boring nonsense. But I hope that's not the case this time. Anything to add?
I'm really talking a lot and analyzing a lot today.
Wait a second. If Alexander has tired you out with his chatter today, then give us a like.
Alright, it's finally time for me to have my say. Julian Erosa and Melquizael Costa. An interesting matchup. What makes it interesting is that both fighters are actually pretty good on their feet, but at the same time, both are quite versatile. What would I say about this fight? Erosa still clearly has the advantage in both height and reach. He generally prefers to engage in combat while standing, making use of his impressive length, notable height, and his aggressive, forward-pressing style. He has very good, truly impressive jiu-jitsu skills on the ground, which allows him both to defend against wrestling and to pull off submissions and to finish his fights with various holds. In his recent fights, he has shown the ability to finish bouts both by submission and by knockout. A very versatile guy. Melquizael Costa is also a versatile fighter, but his strength lies specifically in his ground game, although he is quite diverse and interesting in the stand-up as well. He has a lot of experience defeating his opponents with submissions, particularly various submission holds, but in my opinion, he often fails to successfully bring the submission or the fight to a definitive finish and doesn't always take full advantage of favorable moments and opportunities for himself in those situations, which is probably still a sign of insufficient experience, especially on the ground, or maybe a lack of experience applying jiu-jitsu directly, efficiently, and effectively in a real fight. Nevertheless, he has finished many of his fights by submission, and you could say that he is a versatile fighter, but still with a strong leaning towards jiu-jitsu. So what do we have in the end? Two well-rounded fighters. On paper, Costa looks a bit better because he's younger and more explosive. Overall, they have a lot in common, but maybe he's just a bit more awkward to deal with. Erosa is more explosive. It seems to me that he has a stronger, more pronounced punch. At least that's how it looked to me. And he's also pretty good at finishing on the ground and can defend himself there. Yes, as you already mentioned, usually these kinds of fights are less spectacular because both fighters are wary of each other's skills. But if that chemistry is there, that real, genuine chemistry, then the fight can turn out to be explosive and very entertaining. So, let's hope for a spectacular fight that they'll really go at it, grapple, and we'll see a variety of positions and situations. Probably because of his youth, I would give the edge to Costa, but Erosa also looks strong in this fight and could very well finish Costa early in the second or third round. So overall, the odds might be in Costa's favor, but Erosa shouldn't be counted out.
As for me, I'm going to give my preference to Erosa because beating up Elkins is no small feat. I'm rooting for him. And you know who you should trust? If you watched our last episode, who guessed 6 out of 6?
Me.
No, Alexander. Your bets are screwed, Volkov. Only 3 out of 6. So draw your own conclusions, gentlemen. Draw your own conclusions and we move on.
Attention, drum roll please. The next fight is especially interesting because it's not so easy for us to pronounce the names. In the red corner of the octagon we have Dustin Stoltzfus, and in the blue corner Nursulton Ruziboev.
The best amazing.
So let's start with their biographies.
Yes.
When it comes to biographies, no one tells them better than...
Yes, you know, I even wrote the song Biographies for Krovostok. Nursulton is 31 years old. He is our dear brother from sunny Uzbekistan.
Let's clarify, right away on this half of the couch, for some reason I read Nursulton, his name, which is written in English and translated into Russian because I wasn't familiar with his surname and first name before. And on this half we call him Nursulton. And here we will call him Nursultan. So if you know the correct way, let us know in the comments. And we're not judging anyone, we didn't mean to offend. We're just not very familiar.
Just in case, I apologize.
Already off camera, the nearby dog almost screwed the cat.
Well, last year he lost to Buckley by decision, but already in February he came back in his debut fight. He beat Ferreira, then he thrashed Dumas, but unfortunately then he lost to Buckley by decision again, but in February he got back on the winning track. A very experienced and spectacular fighter. 13 TKOs, 20 submissions over his entire career, and only 2 wins by decision. He does have quite a few losses as well. 9 in total over his career, but he is undoubtedly an exciting fighter. That's what I wanted to say about him. do you have anything to add?
Yes, Ruziboev is an exciting fighter, probably with an emphasis on striking technique and has a lot of experience competing. Maybe he doesn't have as much experience against star-studded or well-known opponents, but nevertheless, he already has several impressive fights, knockouts and victories in his portfolio. If we're talking about his opponent, Dustin Stoltzfus, Dustin probably really represents in particular more of the wrestling community, those who are used to building their winning strategy around grappling, around wrestling, around control. And I think that in this fight, the key for him will also be to close the distance, clinch, throw and control on the ground, finishing with submissions. He has decent submissions, solid jiu-jitsu, good takedowns and explosive entries. And this will probably be the main danger for Ruziboev. For Nursulton, his key to victory in this regard is striking, maintaining distance, and being aggressive. Under no circumstances should he give Dustin a chance to catch his breath, prepare for an attack, or go for a takedown. He needs to keep constant pressure at his own range. Probably Nursulton still looks like a bit more of a favorite in this fight than Dustin does, but if Dustin manages to successfully impose his own preferred pace, to really force the grappling exchanges, and if Ruziboev ends up fighting on the back foot and gives up the center throughout the fight, then Dustin has every chance to win this fight, either by controlling him on the ground for extended periods of time, maintaining dominant positions, or by eventually getting a submission finish. So, of course, I would probably give the edge in this fight to Ruziboev as the favorite, with his strong striking skills, better striking technique, and his ability to find weaknesses. Moreover, that same Ferrero, who was Ruziboev's opponent, lost to Ruziboev within the first minute of the first round, but he actually beat Dustin. So, they had the same opponent, which, let's say, can be used to compare their potential matchup, but of course that's not an objective measure. I would make this prediction in favor of Nursulton.
Let me throw in a few more facts about Stoltzfus. He's 33 years old. It's hard to even call him a gatekeeper. His UFC record is 3 wins and 5 losses, and he alternates wins and losses very consistently. Win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Accordingly, he won his last fight, which means it's time. Let me almost quote the songwriter Bellato, time. So this is a great chance for our big guy to just trample him and make us happy with his victory. So I'm rooting for Nursulton, basically.
That's exactly why I came. Let's move on to the next fight.
Sodiq Yusuff versus Mayron Santos.
Great. Tell us about these fighters, because even for me, they're not very well known.
Yusuff is 31 years old, a very athletic fighter with a UFC record of 6 wins and 3 losses. He's coming off 2 defeats, the last of which was against the tough Brazilian Diego Lopes, and as they say, that's no pushover. So,
Not just a loss, he got his ass kicked.
what did I say?
Luli received it.
Did you get it?
Ass kicked.
So he has a good opponent who's coming in on a 2-fight winning streak in the UFC. Yeah, he's a prospect, fresh blood, just a promising young. If you watched previous episodes, I also called Zahabi a young prospect. But I was right, wasn't I? Make way for the young, even though he was only 6 months or a year younger than Jose Aldo. But I said the younger guy would win, and the younger guy did win. All right. That fight with Aldo really was very controversial, and the decision was questionable. So, again, like I said, Aldo got robbed. He really did. But let's get back to today's fight. In short, he's a real prospect through and through. You never know, maybe Yusuff will drop out of the top 3. And you know what else tells us that, by the way? He's the favorite with the bookmakers, and that's always telling. Anything to add?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I don't really rely on the bookmakers at all. I personally tend to trust my own intuition, which unfortunately quite often lets me down. Ha 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 ha, but I still believe in it. So, what can I say about these fighters? Sodiq Yusuff is more experienced in the UFC. He had a long, drawn-out fight with Edson Barboza, which he lost by decision, but nevertheless, the bout was lengthy, interesting, and quite spectacular. Overall, yes, he lost his last fight to Lopez by knockout. But in general, I believe that thanks to his striking skills and experience, he is the favorite in this fight. I can say very little about his opponent, Santos. He has relatively little experience competing in the UFC so far and hasn't faced any high-profile opponents. I would still give the edge in this fight, judging by the situation, to Sodiq Yusuff. I think he will be able to control the fight, outstrike his opponent, and make use of his technical skills. Although I don't expect anything special from this fight, to be honest.
And really, you shouldn't expect anything special from this fight. But as for me, I'm rooting for his opponent. Let the young ones have their chance. And now, the next fight. We're getting to the finale. Rodolfo Bellato versus Paul Craig. Craig is 37 years old. He has a pretty even record in the UFC, 9-9-1. The guy is so even you could use him to level walls. Well, you get what I mean. He's on a fantastic losing streak, 3 in a row. But in his defense, I want to say that he's faced some pretty serious guys like Brendao Alin, Caio Borralho, and of course Buonicolau. We've already discussed his strengths and weaknesses in our lore before. In short, judging by his record, age, and all the other factors, most likely the guy is now fighting for a contract. Most likely if he loses, he'll just be let go.
For the record, I don't think so. I'll mention this again elsewhere.
That's right, that's right. You remember? 6 out of 6 in the last episode. I'd also like to sum up that today, his opponent is basically the son of mom's friend, or you could say Pereira's brother. You'll get it. Bellato, he's 29 years old. His UFC record is 1 win, no losses, 1 draw. By the way, he hasn't lost. His last fight was a draw. He came from Dana White's Contender Series and hasn't lost since 2022. Out of 15 fights, only 2 of his have gone to a decision. In short, he's an exciting, powerful guy. And naturally, he's a heavy favorite with the bookmakers, which says a lot as well. So most likely after this party, the Scotsman will be written off. Well, now it's your turn. Jump in, give us some of your so-called school of water and everything else.
As always, I have my alternative opinion, which doesn't match the bookies. If you want to lose your money, listen to him. So listen to me. Him means me, I'm talking about my opinion.
That's right.
So, Rodolfo Bellato really is, there's absolutely no question about it, truly, undeniably a striker. He mostly works on his feet, a solid, impressive, strong, tough fighter with a good record in the UFC. But, like all young fighters, there's one thing, they don't always have enough experience, especially experience against fighters and performances in the UFC. And of course his gaps in grappling and wrestling technique could show here. Fortunately, jiu-jitsu is available in any gym these days. I'm sure he's working on it and improving in that area as well. But Paul Craig, despite having quite a few losses, especially in his recent fights, and you were right, his opponents have been tough. He's also had victories over some very strong opponents. He defeated Nikita Krylov, he beat Ankalaev with a submission, and by the way, that's the only loss Ankalaev has had in his career. So, based on his track record, you definitely shouldn't count Paul Craig out. The guy's got skills, he knows what he's doing, he can choke people out and he can wrestle. The question here is whether Paul Craig will be able to take his opponent to the ground, impose his grappling, and go for the submission. Will Jiu-Jitsu be able to overcome Muay Thai and knockout power? And I think that in the case of Rodolfo Bellato, Craig is quite capable of doing just that. He has enough skills to catch his opponent with a submission, and he's especially good at working from the bottom. In fights like these, strikers often like to control the action, land a shot, start ground and pound, and then forget a bit about defending against jiu-jitsu grappling. And here, Paul Craig will have a chance to use his ability to pull off unexpected submissions from unexpected positions. So, probably for the sake of added excitement and anticipation, I'd say that Paul Craig will, without a doubt, be able to bring this fight to a successful conclusion with a submission hold.
Well, okay, we'll see. And now we've reached the cherry on top of today's cake, the final fight.
I think there really is too much swearing.
Sorry, but you can't take words out of a song. Of course. Announce it.
The final climactic fight, the very reason this entire tournament was organized, the reason the whole stacked card of elite fighters came to Vegas, the reason why the UFC will absolutely clear out the Apex on May 17th from all training and tour video shoots, all for this one truly unforgettable history-making moment.
Honestly, I think this tournament is so crappy that maybe this cleaning day just happens to fall on the same day as the tournament. Otherwise, they would have cancelled the tournament.
If someone can make a better tournament, go ahead and organize it. This is the tournament as it is. It's interesting. And the main event of this tournament, Gilbert Burns versus Michael Morales.
Burns is 38 years old. He's an awesome jiu-jitsu guy who successfully transitioned to MMA and picked up some striking skills. Overall, right now, he's really good in some areas. But it's worth mentioning, he's a bit old. The poor guy is getting up there. What can you do? This is a sport of high achievement. Here, age matters. His record is 15-8. He's been fighting in the organization since 2014. What about you? Since when?
2016.
See, he's even been here 2 years longer than you. I thought that...
He's 2 years older than me?
Yeah, I thought the only one older than you was Dana White. Anyway, but his last win was in 2023, and now he's on a 3-fight losing streak to Bilal, Mandalina, and Brady. Yes, it's me, Burns. His opponent is 25 years old and is 5-0 in the UFC. he has actually never lost in his entire career. His record is 17-0 with 12 of those wins by knockout. He's from Ecuador. All in all, he's a dangerous, absolutely fierce guy. Naturally, the bookmakers have him as the favorite too. I should point out, of course, that up until now, he hasn't faced such a serious opponent in terms of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or grappling. In other words, an opponent who knows what to do from the bottom. But as you and I know, it's still a long way to the stalls. By the way, he has a 92% takedown defense rate. Just a minute. In short, the guy is clearly being put through a serious test. And for Burns, this might be his last dance, as we say around here. His last time in the spotlight. Anything to add?
I don't really think this could be his last dance or something that would end his career, unless he himself decides so, of course. Burns is a big name in the UFC. He has indeed lost his last few fights, but who did he lose to? To the champion, to a former champion, and currently to a strong, highly skilled fighter who recently beat Edwards in the octagon. None of his losses could really be called shameful, embarrassing, or disappointing in any way whatsoever. That's exactly why Burns is still widely considered a very dangerous and truly formidable fighter. We all remember what an incredible fight he gave Khamzat Chimaev. And yes, he's a representative of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he has adapted to MMA extremely well. He hits really hard and can finish his fights not only on the ground, but he can also knock someone out. Morales is a young guy and remains undefeated. And this is probably one of those cases where I'd say that his lack of experience won't really affect him much here. I watched his fights and I liked his style. He works in a varied way, knows how to control the distance, feint, and attack at different levels. And on the ground he really doesn't have a lot of experience, but he feels quite confident there. You can see that Morales, as a fighter, is learning different styles, developing, and already picking up on universal skills like the new generation. And this is really one of those cases where youth can actually stand up to and even overcome experience. I think I'll probably honestly give the win to Morales as well. But the only thing is, we need to see how he handles a 5-round fight. We'll see about his conditioning, his ability to stay focused on the fight for a long time, to keep working and stick to the game plan, because I think knocking out Burns is going to be pretty tough.
Well, I'll emphasize again, it's also going to be tough to grapple with him on the ground. Who are you picking?
I gave my preference to Morales.
Damn, me too. Well, there you have it. That's the whole story.